Welcome to IDT 540. In this class, we are going to learn a little bit of coding. And I do mean a little bit. We're not going to get really deep into coding. We're going to learn the basics of HTML. We are learning HTML for a few reasons. HTML is the backside of every single web page on the internet. It's also the back end of your Storyline and Captivate projects. As you get into more online teaching, you'll find that basically every web editor, if you're a learning management system like Canvas or someplace else, you're able to edit the HTML code. You can go right into HTML view, edit code directly here, add code, see how it looks on the screen, and you kind of check out how things are going on the back end as well. So we're going to look at accessibility in this class, for example. You may notice there's a lot of options up here. Maybe you never use them, but one of them is the styles option, which is what it's known as in Microsoft Word. And this is the option to change the size of your headings. So when you just look at it, you might just think, all right, it changes the size of them. They got funny numbers in front. I don't know what that means. But what's important is to use these headings in order so that when you run an accessibility checker, like say Wave, it'll analyze the structure for you, and you can see, oh, H1's the biggest, then it goes H2, then it goes H3, and you can see all of these are in order. Using headings, formatting your text in the back end as headings using HTML allows someone that is using a screen reader to scan the content. Just like visually, if you are sighted, you kind of scan content on a page to kind of figure out what you want to read and what you want to skip. That allows someone using a screen reader to do the same thing. Without headings, they would have to look at the page and they would have to read every single word aloud to see what's on the page. So using headings gives screen reader users a similar experience to sighted users. And you don't do that by just highlighting the text and making it bold and making it bigger. You have to select headings, the appropriate heading, and they have to be structured appropriately. And you can see that in the back end as well. So you can see the top one there is H2. That means heading size 2. Then it goes H3. Heading size 3 is smaller than heading size 2. I know, it's a little funky. And you can see we go on further, H4. Then we go back to H3 because it's a new section, and so on and so forth. Something else that's really important is using the way you use lists. Just like using headings allows users to be able to scan content, just like you would be able to as a sighted user, using formatted lists, numbered and unordered in an HTML editor allows your users to decide if they want to listen to a whole list or not, or if they want to be able to scan through the items in a list. So for example, I have a list set up here. I just use dashes. This is all just placeholder text, by the way. It's supposed to be nonsense. I know it's nonsense. If you go into the HTML editor, you can see this is how I have the list set up. Each line is actually a new paragraph. P is for paragraph, and I just use dashes. This is not usable for someone with a screen reader. Instead, you take out your manually entered dashes, you select the content, you choose bullets, or you can choose numbers, whichever you like. And then if you go into the back end, you can see, oh, I've given this a lot of structure. This is turned into an unordered list, it's called, and these are each of the list items. This formatting in the back end, I mean, again, for a sighted user, it probably looks fairly similar, like what's the difference between the dashes and the bullets? It's a really big difference in the back end. It makes it much more structured and allows your screen reader users, again, to tab through the content really quickly. So again, that's really important. That's one of the really important things about knowing the basics of HTML. We're not going to become master coders overnight. It's really important to be able to look at the back end and kind of get an idea if things seem right or if things could be improved. If you run an accessibility checker on one of your own online works and it says there's a problem in the back end, you'd be able to go in and make that change manually. Another item here that's important is hyperlinks. A lot of people have the habit of just copying and pasting their hyperlink right into the text here. If you're a screen reader user, and we'll get into this later, that screen reader is going to read every single letter and symbol in this hyperlink aloud. And you're like, okay, cool, that's fine. I don't want them to do that, so I'll just go ahead and hyperlink click here. If you're a screen reader user, you're just going to hear the phrase click here, and you're not going to know where that goes. So again, it's important to think about HTML and how formatting really affects the user experience. So instead, you can do something like learn more about HTML, and then you can put in whatever link you want to. And again, in the back end, you can see that it's, where did it go? You can see that it's properly linked out here. Oh, here it is. You see there's also some other items here in the link itself, inline disabled, target blank, no opener. These all have meaning as well. If you're having problems with the link, maybe you didn't copy and paste right, maybe it's not behaving the way you want, you can actually come into the HTML here and edit it as well. And again, for screen reader users, when they come to this link, it's going to read them the actual words in the that are hyperlinked. Learn more about HTML. Cool things that we'll be able to do is, let's see, I'm just going to make myself a little note here. You'll be able to insert some really cool HTML elements. This will be some of the more advanced, I'll call it intermediate. This will be some of the intermediate HTML skills we'll be doing. I got some code on my other screen here to my left, and I'm going to insert a bit of code here. Okay, so this is going to give me a button. I've already put in the title, I've already put in the link I want it to go to, and where what words I want in there. I have to insert this to the HTML view. Now when I exit out, you can see it says Learn HTML. That doesn't look very exciting, but if we click Save, now I've got a button. Isn't that cool? If I click the button, it'll take me elsewhere. It's a nice way to kind of highlight a link in a different way. It's called a call to action button. You might see that phrasing in marketing or web design materials. And then if I decide I want to edit that button, I didn't have to do this code from scratch. I just copied and pasted it. But say I want to change the color. Like say, I think this is a much better color. This is a hex color picker. The colors used in HTML are typically in hex, not in RGB or HSL, or maybe they are, I don't know. But I always use hex. It makes it really easy. You can use a picker like this, choose whatever color you want, copy the color, and you can pop it in here. So let's save that, see how it looks. Now you can see I changed the color of my button from purple to blue. So it's important to know really basic HTML so you can feel comfortable making small fixes like that. When it comes to Storyline and Captivate, you can use all sorts of different code to make your projects go further. So for example, I have this keyword generator, and I have this slide where I want users to be able to copy and paste their keywords because they're actually going to use this in a real like search engine somewhere. You click on the screen, you find you can't do anything with this text. You can't copy it, nothing. So I got some code that someone else posted online, and I put that into my Storyline project. So now people can use this to copy the text, and they can, paste it wherever they want. I can show you that really quick in Storyline here. I pulled up the project. This is actually a bit of JavaScript. This looks very different from HTML. I know nothing almost about JavaScript here, but my comfort with code is such that I'm able to kind of figure out what I want to change. So right here, if I wanted to change what it said, copy to clipboard, Control C, this is what the user sees. I feel comfortable editing this. I know to leave the little quotation marks because those are really important. Those show up in HTML as well. And I'm able to make my Storyline project do a little more than I would have been able to do otherwise. Lastly, sometimes there's things like maybe you're copying and pasting content from one place to another. This isn't the best example, but of course when you want to have a really good example of something you're not able to find, the best possible example of the error that was happening before. But say I paste this into my press book that I'm working on. And in the back end, sometimes you'll get a lot of garbage code that copies along with your content. So you see all these things, they can really muck up the visual presentation of the content you put in. So again, if you know some code, you feel comfortable coming back here and cleaning it up. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you're using this the visual web editor and you're trying to make something happen. Maybe you put in a YouTube video or something else and it's not working. A lot of the time it's because there's some sort of junk code in the back end. Oh, and similarly, you'll be able to embed YouTube videos into the back end of your projects. You'll see that this code from YouTube, let's say I want to put this right here. This code from YouTube is actually an iframe. You can actually put whatever you want into an iframe. So you can edit this code, this iframe code, to put in any website you want. Say I want to put in Google here instead, because I think that's a good idea. So let's check this out first. You can see my YouTube video. All right, it's there. So a webinar that I did. Now say I just want to reuse the iframe code. I can go back into here and I can put in, say I want to be cute and put in my own like website, for example. So I can put that in. Maybe I'll change that to Lindsay's website or something. Click save. Now we're going to have a tiny iframe that actually embeds my website. And you can change the size of this as well. Again, if you're comfortable with code, you can go in, take a look at this. Oh, width, I want this actually to be 800 pixels wide. I want it to be 800 pixels high, for example. Click save, and now it's bigger. So the more you're comfortable with code, I'm really beating this to death here, I know, the more you're going to be able to do in the back end of your projects. As an instructional designer, I, again, am not a master coder. I don't code from scratch. I know how to copy and paste, and I know what the general rules are of HTML, so I can go in and edit. I look things up all the time. I look up HTML, I look up CSS, JavaScript. I just kind of muddle through and do the best I can. But knowing code is going to let you do a lot more when you do things online. It makes things more accessible, it makes things more usable if you know how to fix problems and identify problems in the first place. So let's wrap this up. I've talked enough. Don't feel too intimidated by coding. We're going to learn the basics. Once you understand what's going on in the back end, it's going to make web editors like this one make a lot more sense. You'll understand what these are doing in the back end. It's going to remind you that you need to use things like ordered lists and unordered lists. Everything is going to make more sense for you in the front end if you understand what's going on back here. So we're not going to become master coders. We're going to learn the basics, and we're going to use the basics to do a little intermediate coding later on, where it's just going to be copying and pasting and customizing. And this is going to make you more effective whenever and wherever you work online.